Oh, brother. Why did they promote me to lieutenant? I was so much happier before they gave me these subordinates to command. Oh, I forgot! Minmay's gonna kill me if I don't get her a birthday present. Now where am I gonna find something at this time of night?
As he tries to come up with an excuse, a funny anecdote, anything he can tell her to salvage this oversight, he sees her in the window, and she spots him as well. Well, she's happy to see him, and as he admits he's come to apologize, she assumes it's just for coming so late to give her a present. Rick just can't admit he'd never picked one up, so he scrambles for anything on his person that could work, and fortunately finds...
You didn't forget, and you still have time. That's fabulous, Rick. It's not midnight yet, so it's still my birthday.
I guess it could be a gift, so why not? Yeah! Hey, here it comes! It must be my day. Catch! Here you are!
I got it! Oh, caught it! Oh, what is it? Oh, it sparkles and it's so beautiful. Did you really get this for me, Rick?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Wherever did you get it?
I'll tell you later, Minmay. Happy birthday! Bye!
Bye! He's so sweet.
But Minmay is smiling, her birthday ends happily, and all is well aboard the mighty SDF-1. This really was the last time Minmay and Rick were very close, as soon afterwards she'd win the Miss Macross contest. And not only would her life change, everything would change. Minmay mania would sweep through the ship, and from there, continue to spread through the ZENTRAEDI armada tailing the SDF-1, where her voice and influence would affect the biggest change of all. This change would lead to a ZENTRAEDI Rebellion against their own kind. That devotion to her and the culture she represented was something they found worth dying for. Many ZENTRAEDI lives would be lost, even as they clutched tiny Minmay dolls in their giant hands, both wasting away as remnants of a lost era. Even as they stand as monuments to their sacrifice in the wastes of the planet they saved. The world was certainly a different place now, a different era, as Minmay wraps up a show at an exclusive club not far from New Macross City, where even her talent and reputation among humans and ZENTRAEDI alike were unable to pack the house. Kyle remarks on how empty it was, critiquing Minmay on the lack of quality in her performance tonight. She's not even bothered by his words, shrugging them off, and remarking how maybe the audience would have been bigger if they didn't charge so much for admission. Kyle playfully reminds her that they're still trying to save up to build a great concert hall one day. But Minmay hesitates at the thought, and quietly admits she isn't even sure what she's singing for anymore. Kyle ignores this as nonsense, promising her a big, nice dinner. Sure, that'll make her feel better.
I'm not very hungry, Kyle.
We're going to eat anyway. I'll get the car. Come on, get in. Where would you like to eat?
Your dad's restaurant. We haven't been there in a long time.
I don't want to go there.
Then let me off and I'll go there myself.
Oh? Minmay, we could have been killed.
I am sorry, Kyle, but I'm really going there, even if it means I have to go by myself. Goodbye.
No, wait. Get back in the car.
Why should I?
I'll drive you as far as the city line.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
Things aren't getting better for these two. And it's telling that Kyle doesn't even want to stop in to see his own parents. It's clear Minmay is looking for a place of comfort and safety to go to, and maybe even desiring to return to her past, to before everything changed. Back at the SDF-1, Exodore, Dr. Lang, and a whole battalion of Robotech engineers and scientists had been working around the clock to decipher the secrets of Zor's ship, to understand the genetic code of humans and ZENTRAEDI, and learn the cryptic histories of both, that they might learn to not repeat the mistakes of either. Exodore and Lang had called Admiral GLOVAL and his personal advisors, which included Lisa, Claudia, and Rick, to a meeting of some of their latest findings. It was clear that the origins of both species were almost certainly descended from the same race. This would naturally include the people of Tyrol and the Robotech masters, as well as Zor himself. Of the many commonalities all these races shared, one striking and alarming trait was a tendency towards violence and war, a trait not exclusive to the ZENTRAEDI and their biogenetically engineered aptitude of fighting. Rick takes some offense at this and begins arguing with the scientists that humans don't fight because they like it, but his point is countered by Lang, who reminds Rick of mankind's own history of the many wars, deaths, and genocides they'd inflicted on themselves, long before the SDF-1 and the ZENTRAEDI. Their discussion gets heated before Exodore and GLOVAL interject, reminding everyone that these findings are simply to help them all create a future better than the pasts from which they've descended. Rick is still uncomfortable at the thought, though, but keeps the rest of this to himself for now. He knows war and fighting aren't the answer, and both races needed to overcome those mistakes. It didn't help that many ZENTRAEDI were still up and leaving their new lives, their jobs, and causing trouble in most sectors where they were stationed. We see the continued unrest caused by many of them to wander off into the wastes. Back in New Macross, Minmay makes it to Aunt Lena and Uncle Max's restaurant. Of course, Mayor Tommy Lewin and his wife are there too, as per usual. They're all surprised to see Minmay, and when she asks if she can stay the night, her uncle tells her that this is her home, and she can even have her old room kept just like she'd left it.
Isn't that great? She hasn't changed a bit, even after becoming famous.
It's Minmay.
Minmay. She's still our little girl.
Oh no! That makes me sound like a little child who hasn't grown up at all.
Oh, I didn't mean it that way.
As she starts drawing a bit of a crowd, she decides to go rest in her old room. She's almost hesitant to enter, like it's a portal to another life. A life that was, a life that might have been. As she makes herself comfortable, she notices the shoddy repair work in the corner, left over from the first time she and Rick met, and... back when he nearly killed her and her neighbor, Jason. Talk about a meet cute. Good times. Still, that was a happy memory, and it was the day she met him. At the thought of him, she goes and checks, and sure enough, there was his birthday present to her, still kept safe in the drawer. As she fondly remembers the night he gave it to her, how surprised and excited she was by it all. She swears she could hear him calling to her just like he had that night. But as she runs to the window, there was nothing there but an empty street, reminding her of the emptiness she felt inside.
Oh, Rick, what have I done? What have I done?
The next morning, the rising sun was glinting off the battered battle fortress as the city began to stir. A young paperboy runs about making his deliveries, and I'm pretty sure it's little Jason, now a few years older, though we're never told for sure. He is surprised to see Minmay emerge from the restaurant and is happy to see her. She bids him good morning, but doesn't seem to recognize him now that he's a little older, which disappoints him. A few blocks away, we find Rick jogging along, running near a cleaning service with a trio of employees who seem very familiar. It seems Rico, Conda, and Braun have not only given up any semblance of military life, but I swear they want to try every aspect of Micronian society, as we'll find them at different odd jobs from this point on in the story. Right now, they were trying out a dry cleaning business, but Conda comes in excited to tell them the news he'd heard about Minmay being in town, even staying at her family's restaurant last night. Just as Rico and Braun argue that can't be true since she has a concert in another city tonight, she happens to walk right up to them, and they act like they're seeing an angel. Until they start fighting over clothing they want her to autograph. But Minmay finds them delightful and is happy to see them again. Rick turns a corner and runs into Lisa, who's out for a morning stroll of her own. I feel like the friendliness and ease of their conversation and the way they are with each other in this instance is far more typical of their interactions these days than the arguing we saw in the last episode. Rick even excitedly tells her that he put the picture she gave him in his album, which she says is sweet of him. Right as Rick has more to say about it, he turns and sees Minmay of all people, watching he and Lisa talking in such a familiar manner. Now, Minmay knows who Lisa is. She knows Rick and her have worked closely together. And she definitely took note in that moment when the Earth was attacked and Rick quietly mentioned her name. And here was Minmay so nostalgic about Rick, so desperately wanting him to rescue her from her current life, the way he'd swooped in before so many times back then. But it looked to Minmay that maybe she was too late. Maybe Rick's heart had moved on with this Lisa, who had surely been there for him when Minmay had brushed him aside in lieu of her career and Kyle. The thought was more than Minmay could bear at that moment. She welled up in tears and ran away, causing a concerned Rick and an exasperated Lisa to chase after her. But she was too fast and practically vanished around a corner before they could even catch up. And before they can even think to maybe follow her to the restaurant, they heard some ZENTRAEDI-sized commotion not far away. A pair of giants were wreaking havoc, terrorizing the poor mayor, threatening him if he didn't provide them with food, valuables, and anything else they asked for. As Tommy Lewin tried to handle the situation, his wife was calling the authorities, reporting the incident, until they pull her out of the window and begin to threaten her. Tommy moves to defend his poor wife, and just as Rick and Lisa closed in, it seemed a third ZENTRAEDI giant had followed these two, trying to get them to stop this thuggery before they got themselves killed. The mayor gladly turns negotiations over to Rick, and as Rick begins talking with these disaffected troublemakers, destroyed security forces arrive, forcing the giants into a much more amicable position. The destroyed commander, Dan, recognizes Rick and Lisa and defers to them in the situation.
Hey, Commander, what happened?
Don't worry, Dan. Let me handle this.
Whatever you say, sir.
Now you listen to me. And you listen good. I know life with us is hard for you, but the authorities want to help you with your problems if you give them a chance.
Wait a minute. If your government is so worried about us and so concerned with our welfare, why don't they let us go out and be with our own people where we belong?
Well, that's...
I am a warrior, understand?
Well, what about it? He wants to fight. Can you help him?
I'm good with my fists, and I can handle practically any weapon, so what do you say? Can you help me? Speak up, I can't hear you. Well, are you gonna help me or not?
Well, we have no firm guarantee the other Zentradi won't attack at any time. My answer is no.
If you can't help me solve my problem, then what's the point in saying you or your government will talk about it? Micronian.
On my signal, blast him!
No, wait, don't shoot.
Wait! Dan, hold your fire!
Rick wouldn't let violence be the solution here. He was determined to show that the humans were wanting, willing, and able to help their Zentradi allies. They wanted to work together with them to correct the mistakes of the past, overcome their natural instincts to fight, and create a better future for them all. As he voices this to the giant, a great shame comes upon him, and he and the other wander off, even as their third friend shouts after them to stop and come back, reminding them of how great they thought the Micronians were, how wonderful Minmay's songs were. Minmay hears this and isn't sure how to feel, even as this Zentradi calls his rebellious friends cowards for walking away from it all. Rick and Lisa are greatly alarmed at this incident, wondering why the Zentradi are acting like this, and where else they might go, as the mayor adds his voice to theirs, noting it's the responsibility of all humans to help the Zentradi before things get even worse. It's then we finally get a glimpse of the one making it worse, the one stoking these fires, as we look in on a Zentradi ship hiding in the cold of the North Pole, surrounded by battle pods hidden in the ice and snow. KHYRON the Backstabber finds the news of the growing Zentradi Malcontents exciting, knowing his machinations and manipulations are coming to fruition. It's unsurprising to see Grell still with his commander, but Azonia has also joined KHYRON in some kind of solidarity with this usurper. And it's not a great mystery why or how. Looking back on their previous interactions, it seems obvious that there was an attraction between these two, or at least, Azonia seemed to have a taste for bad boys. And I wonder if seeing the happy look on her First Lieutenant Maria Perina's face as she bonded with that Micronian male didn't stir something within Azonia, some desire to have that same look of joy, that same life that Miria had. Perhaps she even fantasized about sharing that life alongside Miria and her chosen champion. As for KHYRON, it was always my theory that during the great battle with the main fleet, he intended to prove his loyalty to Dolza and attack Britai's ships, which included Azonia's. But perhaps his own attraction to her caused him to rescue her and her ship in the midst of that battle, saving her life and securing her loyalty to him, creating a semblance of that bond of love the Micronians share with their mates. Whatever the case, and however it happened, Azonia was fully on board with KHYRON and his plans, even deferring to him as the commander of their forces. And at this moment, KHYRON couldn't be more elated that their forces were growing in number.
What's that? Gerardo, are you absolutely sure of it?
Yes, sir, I'm sure. Our spies have reported that thousands of dissatisfied Zentradi are leaving town after town. They are estimated to be around 10,000, sir.
Ah, splendid. An interesting occurrence, wouldn't you say? Worth the 2-year wait in a terrible place like this, eh?
Indeed.
The taste for the Micronian lifestyle was only temporary. I knew that after a little while they'd get tired of it. And you see, I was right.
Yes, KHYRON.
Now look, if things keep going as they have been, we can put together a battalion that I guarantee will take you.
Yes, of course we shall. Now then, listen everyone! You needn't hide yourselves any longer, you are ZENTRAEDI warriors! I want you to lead all the escapees here! And I want you to tell all the micronized ZENTRAEDI that if they come, I'll return them to their original size so that they too may walk proud and tall.
As KHYRON's army grew, Admiral GLOVAL was putting forth the mandate for a very special, secretive mission. As he and Exodore call forth their finest officers in Max, Miria, Lisa, and Rick to inform them of their needed expertise. Exodore reports their findings of the Robotech factory satellite, a massive space station in which many, if not most, of the ZENTRAEDI vessels had been fabricated. It was GLOVAL's intention that this factory satellite must be captured, not only to prevent the remaining ZENTRAEDI or Robotech masters from rebuilding a fleet such as Dolza's own, but it was time the Earth began construction of its own fleet in defense of mankind and to begin its own expansion amongst the stars. The utter importance of this mission's success could not be overstated by GLOVAL, as one by one, Rick, Lisa, Max, and Miria confirmed their understanding of the mission priorities and began to plan their capture of the Robotech factory. Far across the galaxy, near the planet Phantoma, on the moon of Tyrol, the Robotech masters themselves were informed of a massive release of reflex energy near the last known coordinates of Dolza's main fleet. A fleet there had been no sign of since. After much debate concerning if the disciples of Zor could harness the secrets of his ship to destroy a fleet of 4 million, they determined that perhaps a Robotech barrier, if it was to be inverted and overloaded, could create that level of a destructive energy wave. In theory. Whatever had happened to the fleet, such an anomaly had been detected, and that level of protoculture energy released at once would very likely draw the attention of the dreaded Invid. It was imperative that the Masters reach this location first, confident that only Zor's battle fortress could induce such an energy wave. Now knowing their ZENTRAEDI have failed, and they must capture the ship for themselves, before the Invid find it first. Kyle was watching the clock, knowing he should never have let Minmay go home, now that she was late to her own concert. Not that it mattered much with the tiny turnout of the crowd out there. Even the venue's promoter was nervous, as he and Kyle argue over if Minmay was going to show up at all, Kyle telling him he had every faith in her as a professional. He's happy to be proven right, as an employee runs in to tell them Minmay's actually been getting ready in her dressing room for a bit already, having snuck in without announcing herself. Kyle barges in, yelling as he demands to know what took her so long. And she doesn't even care. Doesn't care about him. Doesn't care about crowd sizes or money or the concert hall they dreamed about together. She vows to Kyle that from now on, she'll only be singing for herself. He was baffled at what that even meant, but how could he understand how she'd felt? She had to sing for herself now. It was all she had. She'd wondered if her singing hadn't done more harm than good. An entire race of people had gone to war with each other over the influence her voice had over them all. Her songs may have doomed the world, even as they were used to defend it and win that war. And the devoted ZENTRAEDI who'd given their lives in that effort, she feared, may have done so in vain.
It's you I miss. It's you who's on my mind. It's you I cannot leave behind. It's me who's lost. The me who lost her heart. To you who tore my heart apart. If you still think of me, how did we come to this? Wish that I knew. It is me that you miss. Wish that